good day. So how you're doing in the afternoon? You still have some strength to go on? Yes, great.
Digital transformation. Everybody talks about that. Very little understand what is it. Дуже багато дискутують на цьому.
So it has been really discussed. Not a lot of people really understand what it is. So we have invited the practitioners today to join us here in order to talk and how the digitalization is done in practice. Those people who have been implementing will implement and continue implementing the digital transformation. And I would like to rather tell you there's going to be the boring and technical discussion. So it will be, well, that's definitely not going to be like that. So please stay with us. So those people who believe there are only purely humanitarian, so please also stay with us. It will be really interesting. So, just to start with, please turn the video on. Digital transformation is changing the world. Information technology in business, in government and in public sphere. The World Economic Forum forecast in 2025 the economic prospect of digital transformation could be $100 trillion. How can it affect Ukraine? Our economy is shifting from raw material exports to the development of IT products and services. The competitiveness in the digital world is the main driver for innovation. Innovativeness means that the best practices and the experiences of the companies that they have the data business-driven model. Is Ukraine ready for the drastic change to happen? Definitely. Ukraine has the knowledge, the potential in different fields and the desire to improve our services and ourselves. The country turns into a very convenient service. The purchases have become the role model for transparency, and moreover, the Ukrainians create unique creative solutions, marketplaces, online services, neobanks, crypto markets, innovative banking. The big business is also being transformed. Raiffeisen Bank of Val is one of the first banks with automated of services, including the accounts opening and administering the credits. DTEK introduces digital solutions for the energy extraction, working on the power stations, and automated logistics and monitoring of the grid. But digital transformation is not all about blockchain, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and other technologies. This is most about the client experience, new culture, and innovative business models. The synergy of technology and new culture, the economic driver that is needed for Ukraine for more than 28 years already. The digital transformation is the new national idea of the country. It will open the way to success, competitiveness in the digital world, and the better quality of life. Thus, if we speak about the digital transformation, what is it about we would like to talk to you today? We will show you some of the research or methodology that has been developed throughout this summer and throughout this autumn on in what way that digital transformation is being held in Ukraine and in Ukrainian companies. We have 3 companies that have agreed with one another. The Digital Reservation Institute, the top lead company, and DTEK have agreed to look at what companies that have already started the digital transformation and in what the step-by-step gradual development they are introducing the digital transformation in Ukraine. There has been a lot of information that has been included outside from Ukraine, but we would like to create this kind of methodology that would be universal and would be able to be used for all of the Ukrainian companies. I would like to show you some of the summaries on the research that have been conducted. So first of all, I would like to start with saying that why are we talking about the digital transformation today? Because more or less, according to the predicted forecasting, we have started to do that in 2000 and up till 2015, 2017, it was possible to forecast at least some of the change. The changes have been forecastable. But yesterday, here in this room, you have heard a big discussion on whether there's going to be a big crisis happening next year or no. No one can forecast it now. No one wants to take the responsibility of whether it will happen or no. Why is that happening? Because there's so many different variables, so many technological and human variables that influence the way of development of economy. The digital transformation transformation is strongly interconnected with the economy and with big modern current part that is currently called the digital economy. And if we speak on methodology of our research, something that we wanted to share with you today, the methodology of the research has been created not based on technology, but based on the inside parts of the processes. The whole story of the digital transformation starts with every company to have a clear understanding of the customer, analyzing not through the marketing research and asking the client what is their experience on working with your company, but with their examples, with their research situation and how they use your product or service. You start to understand with this client's journey of what is going on, how your product is used, in what way it is used, what is liked, what is disliked, and that is what we analyze in the client's experience. And then we understand that with the help of the new technologies, our companies do not feed the demands of our modern clients, and we will tell you why is that. Another point is our employees. Before we start to introduce something or change something in the process, to change the business model, introduce new technologies, we have to make sure that our employees are ready for that. Because otherwise, and there's a lot of cases in the recent 5 years, a lot of unclear situation when company has lost something in their digital transformation. They couldn't keep on moving further on. That was because of the really bad competences of the employees. The employees didn't understand why if they need this complex technologies. They thought that technology is way too complicated, and they have never thought about those technologies they use every day in life and the technologies that they use at work. The second part of this methodology, what we are saying, that the very same technologies that your clients or your employees are using in their households, they can also use those technologies in businesses, at their workplace, and in the managerial environment. The third big part of the digital transformation is about operational processes. A very interesting discussion that is currently held among the traditional IT markets and innovative companies. The traditional IT companies, they say, well, we have been dealing with the digital transformation for a long time, the ERP systems, the CRM system, different new technologies. But what we are talking about, that is not about introducing the new systems, because you're not changing the process in the core. You're not changing the way you create the value. You're only automating something that you already have. So you're not changing the company itself. Thus, you have to make your processes effective, modern, contemporary, based on what your client has said, on how your client believes your company should work. And only after that, collecting the experience of your clients, the skills of your employees, then the optimized business process, it all gives you the basis to retrieve, achieve, implement digital technologies and to create the new business model that your clients expect you to be. This is the first beginning of all of it. We would recommend you to download this QR code and download the full report of it. You will also have this leaflets if you won't be able to download it in PDF online, so you can just take a look at this in our leaflets, because it's really detailed with examples and cases, the research that will give you a lot of interesting information through infographic. So, I would like to first of all introduce you with our today's speakers, and before I'll do that, I would like to say that you've expected also to see the first Vice Prime Minister, the Vice Prime Minister of Ukraine on digital transformation, Mikhailo Fedorov, but you know, Jack Ma has said a lot about the development of digital technologies, and the Prime Minister has told us on the development of Ukraine that the whole cabinets of ministries today have gathered on a very urgent urgent meeting. Unfortunately, the Vice Prime Minister will not be able to join us today. So we had already made the round table on that, so we can comment a bit on the state regulations in digital transformation. But you can already see that our state slowly turns into digital. So let me introduce you with our friends and guests, so for you to understand what are we going to be talking about. First of all, on the left, the first person that you see on the left is Dmytro Osyka. We have been working with Dmytro on this research, and I would like to say that Dmytro for 15 years already has been working in the business structure of DTEK, and he is the project manager of the digital transformation inside of the DTEK company. It's what's really interesting how the company has established a separate division, a separate department that is responsible for innovation and digital technologies, and I do believe that Dmytro will tell us in details about that. The next person I would like to introduce to your attention is a very very interesting person. So it's Adam Lowmass. Adam Lowmass, he is the head of the digital transformation at Caspian Operating Company. This is the oil and gas operator in the North Caspian Shelf, and the NCOC group also includes Shell company. What is interesting that Adam is responsible for the business transformation. The business transformation is not only about the IT but also M&A. It's also development, the strategies, and so on and so forth. Adam has a tremendous experience in administration in many different countries. Then we also have today at the panel Inga Andreieva, the person who is quite known throughout the banking sector, in the banking markets. And Inga is, well, I do believe it's really hard to also be the person responsible for finances in the financial organization. So you have been developing the banking sector in the national banks and in some other banks, and currently works in the Mastercard, the country manager of Mastercard in Ukraine and Moldova. Also, please welcome Alexander Romanishyn, who is also collaborating in our studio of digital transformation. We are collaborating on the development of digital transformation for the companies, when the digital transformation is not held in the companies but because of the startups. And we would like to talk about the development of the digital systems. And Alexander has a lot of experience in development ecosystems and digital transformation, so we will definitely expect for new comments from you. And Susanne Hundsbaek-Pedersen, she's also with us. We're really grateful for her coming to Ukraine. We're presenting the Novo Nordisk company, working since 2002. First, she was responsible dealing mostly with the issues of procurement, with the supply networks, and currently Susanne is responsible for the global operations for the supply network management, starting from procurement, production plan, and all of the general division. The senior vice president at the Novo Nordisk, the person responsible for more than 150 countries, so there's a huge responsibility on how to work and operate inside of your ecosystem. And I do believe this is the full digital transformed company that's...
So first I'd like to give the floor to Dmytro to take some Ukrainian experience and to begin to look at the DTEK company, that this company has a very traditional historical sector of energy. Moreover, the foundation for all of that is still coal. So this is the sector, not only the coal, of course. I know that you deal with the innovative and green energy and so on, but what's interesting about your sector is that I remember about 10 years ago, not all of the people had mobile devices and could know how to use e-devices. Now this company, one of the leading, which deals with the digital transformations. Would you tell us about your experience, your approaches, especially about the people, processes and technologies? Where's the place of the technologies? Hello, dear colleagues. Yes, really, DTEK just for now is really developing the digitalization sphere, and last year we thought where the energy is moving to. And now we can see that energy is becoming the foundation for the digital world. The role of the energy in the world is changing. And analyzing some info, we thought, why shouldn't we think on the digital transformation? And when we stipulated with our superiors on what digital transformation is, we thought about the implementation of certain systems. Why don't we dream? How would we see our digital station or region Energo or any other object or facility we have? We began with a dream, so we named it Book of Dreams. We formed certain working groups. So this is the Book of Dreams, yes, Book of Dreams, and we didn't know how to fill it in. We needed to write something down. We understood that something needed to be changed, but what exactly, we didn't know. So we formed some working groups. We thought through some of the seminars and invited nice leading experts in some of the correspondence spheres, and we wrote this book together. We formed this vision as lots of hypotheses, which we then selected together, adapted them to our reality, DTEK and Ukraine, Ukrainian as well, because not the whole world practice suits Ukraine. And we formed, according to each of the trends, the Book of Dreams. Now we have 5 of them. This is the coal business, logistics, HR, generation, and the networks, the grids. So it was our first stage. In the process of the Book of Dreams formation, we thought, okay, we've formed it, we've dreamt enough, but what shall we do with that? What will we do with that? How can we implement something unknown? We've never done that before. And we understood that we need the management system, which we named the concept of digital transformation. What does it include? These are innovative projects, because digital mostly are innovations. This is a certain level of uncertainty. We understand the hypothesis, we know we want to achieve the concept, and we see our bottlenecks, but there are lots of such issues, and we need to manage it with some non-traditional approaches. So we thought through the system of digital transformation, where we created the authorities, the managing authorities, which risks we have, the stages and proof of concept and MVP. And this is a very serious product with the whole span of the whole program. And since this year we began the active phase, now we are implementing 23 projects. Those are 5 of our modules, 5. This year we've started and launched 4 more modules: digital analytics, digital procurement, the office, and digital finance. We are planning that the next year will begin the next chapter, the 3rd wave. How do we approach the priorities? Well, of course, first of all, selecting the digitalization projects, we are aimed by different factors. For instance, the increase of operational efficiency, the security of our production, client-driven approach, because opening the new market of electrical energy, it's really relevant for us, because we'll need to compete. And of course, the flexibility of our business. Those were the aims, and through the prism of all of our Book of Dreams, we are moving along them. So, Dmytro, can we say that the driver of all of that is the stimuli for competition? Because there is a competitive market, and it leads, yes, totally. We need to be in the shape. So the wider your market is, if I come to the export, if I compete with the global economy, sooner or later I will need to do something, right? Yes, you're totally right. And one more point, I understand that everything begins with a strategy, and even if you say about Book of Dreams, in any case, you say that this is a kind of design. First we are working on the design of this strategy, and we try to figure out what we want to achieve, and how is it in consent with our aims. Yes, you're right. We are beginning to look at our tree of the value chain of our company. We have these indicators. And what are the indicators of our competitors? We're looking where we have the gaps, where we have the potential. And this is how we form the strategy of digitalization. We don't take the technology for the sake of the technology. We don't implement just some digital initiative. Okay, the last short question for you to get acquainted, because I like to ask that so much. Maybe you know what I mean. Where's the client then? Where's the customer of DTEK? The DTEK client is in the process. In fact, this is the 3rd stage, where we want to look at the digital future of our clients and customers. We are moving on. We are changing our portals. We'll implement different chatbots, the new modern means which would allow to message the client what's going on in our grids, what's going on with the new services at the portals, and so on. We implement the new systems of forecasts of all of the repairment works, and it also gives certain new approaches for our clients. We have the drones flying above the networks, and they of course take the footage of the bottlenecks of those approaches and those initiatives. When we collect them together, we'll create the push for the next stage. Okay, I'd like to comment upon that. In fact, we are all speaking about digital transformation, and we connect it to digital economy, because in fact digital economy, as it used to be announced 15 years ago, it concerned more the pre-telecommunicational market. But any company is using internet, using modern communication systems, and sooner or later it understands that it's also within this market. And today some of the companies in the world consider themselves not to be the part of digital economy, but still the majority of the companies are still inherent to this economy. So if we speak why digital economy has anything to do with digital transformation, we must say that there are 5 main elements which impact the digital economy through transformation. First of all, this is Internet of Things, because the prices are decreasing, it's becoming cheaper and more efficient to control the processes, not manually, not by humans, but with the thanks to additional sensors and control mechanisms, what is going on in the process. The second point are the new digital networks, the digitalization of everything, creation of new digital intellectual networks, which totally change the way of management, the way of optimization of our common usage, and dismantling and creating the system as it is. If we used to consider that the networks have to be created for years, now it's done for several weeks. The client experience, we've already mentioned about that, and the future robots, we'll speak about that later. But the main point and moment is still the values. And what is really changing, first and foremost, what our customer considers to be the value which is added by our company, and how we form this new value for our customers. So I'd like to give the floor to Adam now.
Switch to English. So first of all, Adam, thanks for coming to our conference, and I would like to utilize your huge experience in digital transformation, your knowledge both in technical area, in business area, in consultancy area, and ask probably one of the strategic questions about the really justifying the business value. So justifying that sexy new tech or creating good old-fashioned business value. So what exactly digital transformation mean from your point of view, and how the value is the part of all of that?
Thank you for having me here. It's my second time in Kiev, and it's always a fabulous place to come. So many young, talented people who are willing to try new things and change. And I think one of the challenges that we have with digital transformation is that we spend far too much time fascinated with the latest sexy technology, and we forget about the people and the problems at the center of what we're trying to solve. I don't know how many of you in the audience have been part of one of those strategic projects in your organization, which is code for we have absolutely no idea where we're going to deliver value from this. And most of my experience with digital across the energy industry, I come from Shell and North Caspian Operating Company, has been because we've lost touch with really trying to understand why are we doing what we're doing with digital. It seems to be a bit of a fad, and I think we need to really get back to a bit more of a balance between allowing technology to derive where our business goes, but also trying to understand that true problem that we're trying to solve. A study.
Why it is so hard to capture the value?
I think there's a number of things. I think one of the issues you've got is a lot of the underlying foundational elements are intangible. So when you shifted from the horse to the motor car, you could feel it, you could touch it, you could smell it. Mm-hmm. When you're shifting from paper to digital, the data underlying is ones and zeros, and you can't touch it, it's intangible. Also, the digital transformation and the technologies today has meant that we don't have as much interaction with humans. Mm-hmm. And so the traditional, or some of the more traditional change management techniques about getting people on board, building trust, is somewhat more difficult because you don't have that human interaction. It's not impossible, but it takes different techniques and different behaviours of which we're all still trying to learn.
So it doesn't mean that the people lost the job, so because we automated their job more and more. It means they new skills or something like that, or... Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think digital transformation and technology will have a negative impact on jobs. I think we've heard that from Jack Ma yesterday all the way through. Pretty much everybody has an opinion that jobs will change, but the number of jobs will more than likely go up than down. Mm-hmm. The skills and competences people need to have to allow them to adapt in a much more rapidly changing world will be slightly different. I enjoyed a conversation around the future of education yesterday down in the Hall D, and I think the way that we enable our young people and the way that we help them with change, which is ever constant now, is going to be something that we need to really think about. I think if we just bring it back to the conversation around value, recently Forbes published a bit of research that in 2018, $900 billion of investment was wasted in digital transformation programs across industry, and that's 70% of the money that was invested in 2018. And so if we could flip that, or even get a few more percent of that investment delivering value, by really focusing on why we're doing what we're doing, allowing technology to make us think about what the possible is, but really understanding how work gets done, how we want work to get done in the future, and how technology enables that, rather than, as Dmytro says, just deploying tech for the sake of tech, which I think has been the problem with most transformations that I've bumped into.
Does it mean that the digital transformation cannot be starting without separation the project, like Dmytro example, for example? So we need to create some kind of separate project team who will work and really review how we work completely before we start any kind of technology impact.
I think it can work both ways. I think the culture of the organization or the area you're trying to sort of change and build in, you need to think about whether it can be integrated into the existing organizational structures. I think dedicated focus on a strategic objective is important, be that a digital transformation or any other strategic project, and having a PMO or an organization that helps you focus your efforts and stay true to your plans and promises is very helpful. It's not essential, it is helpful. And so I think that if you can somehow make it absolutely crystal clear as to what you're doing and have somebody dedicated to driving the how, be it a standalone organisation, PMO or other organisation, or in the case of the North Caspian Operating Company, my role, which is a more integrative business management type role, both can work.
Probably just the last comment for that short session. It's about the how we can. You mentioned very strong comments, so it's like 9 million lost or something like that, or non-effective, some 75% of non-effective digital transformation implementation. So how we can improve success? If we can give like 3-4 reasons or key success factors.
I think the first one is to really align what you're going to do and why you're going to do it in the digital space with your organization's strategy, be it a business strategy, a country strategy, or what the case may be. If you need to have a separate digital strategy for purposes of articulating it to your organization and the people involved, do that. I think better yet, it needs to be completely integrated into your organization's strategy, so that it's not just yet another initiative that sits on the side and can potentially depart from the overall objectives of the organisation. So really bringing that clarity and integration into the strategy is one key thing. I think if you really focus and bring it back to the way in which work gets done and how it gets done today and how you want it to get done in the future, and so link all of your technology and your digital technology deployments to your business processes, and align it with the ways of working, so that the sort of the more hard side, be it business process, and the soft side, be it the ways of working in the organisation, that will make it a much more successful approach, because then the deployment of the technology can be done in the path of the work. So people that have to go through that change can see it in their day job, they can see immediate effect, and they can really try and improve it. And in a large, relatively old-fashioned industry like the energy industry and North Caspian Operating Company and Shell, I think it's also important to try and really start small and really demonstrate value before you move on. I know I personally have lost a lot of belief in digital technologies delivering value because we've squandered so much money, and it hasn't really yielded the results that it was promised to do. And so starting small and building up is also, rapidly building up is another key point.
Thank you, Adam. До речі, у нас
By the way, this is such an interesting country we have, because all of our politicians are trying to get quick wins and low-hanging fruits, just to show some results as soon as possible. So if we look at what the Ministry of Digital Transformation is saying about, maybe you saw the project of action, Nadiia, that is the state in the smartphone. I guess everybody has seen it. So when lots of people say that it used to be before, everybody digitalized and e-government, there were some of the services which you could order online. But you know how it took place, in fact. You could order them online, but then you had with the pager jump to get all the papers needed to collect the papers. So when we have this conversation in the Ministry of Digital Transformation, we've had the round table, how this project will be implemented. So the current government says that, first of all, they will create the re-engineering of the processes. This is number one, because the interfaces are so beautiful, it's so nice, everything is looking nice, but the processes are too stable and stagnated. They cannot work in the mode when in 3 to 5 days we want to get some information from the state. It will never work efficiently in this way. So one of the key points which are connected with the services, with the transformation of our companies, with the rapid perception, is in fact how we can monetize all of those processes, all those new models, and on the whether it's convenient for our clients to pay for those services. And here, undoubtedly, we have the payment system topic rising. I'd like to give the floor to Inga, and maybe you understand why I'm speaking about that, because Inga will tell us more about the current situation in the country, about the payment systems and the usage of cash and non-cash payments, and about the part of the digital transformation, because the majority of businesses, when we communicate with them, they say we have a huge current transactions in cash. Why do we need that digital transformation if after that we cannot collect the money from the people? We'll create the new systems and business models, but after that no one will be able to pay for anything. The National Bank commented that in a cool way. They said, well, let us wait while we have some demand, and then we'll create some new identification and cashless economy and so on. Inga, what does Mastercard think of that? I'll give you the slider because you will try to show your presentation, please.
So before Inga is dealing with Clicker, I would like to also continue to tell you that you have the Telegram bot and you can post your questions there, and I'm following to all of that, and I will try to cover your questions or to give the opportunity to our colleagues to answer the questions. Okay, then I will ask. Yes, okay, good. The presentation is there. So first of all, Nadiia, I would like to thank you, and thank you for the question, because if we are talking about creating the demand, then we will definitely work on creating the demand. We'll think about it as one of our tasks. Moreover, as a Mastercard company, we've been doing that for more than 50 years, so it's not something new for us. We will continue doing that. But I would like to continue the topic of the previous speaker. So technology for the technology's sake has no sense, and we have to understand what is the purpose of the technology use and what we would like to change. We would like to change the life of all of our customers, all of our card holders, and of course it's going to influence the economy. And I do believe that today I would like to start with a positive message that Ukraine is very conscious in moving into the cashless economy, and very fast in moving to the cashless economy. And I do believe that this movement wasn't there unless we had the infrastructure that is ready, the prepared infrastructure, something that we have been doing for 20 years already. And according to the statistics of the National Bank of Ukraine, in the first half a year of 2019, we had more than 3,000 POS terminals. There is a 10% growth in this year. Also, what is good for us, 86% of those POS terminals, so they're already use the contactless technology. I'm not going to tell you what the contactless technologies are, because I do believe that 7 years this technology already exists in the market, and everyone really likes that because it's convenient, fast, and nice. So, and for people, what do we need? We need the time resource, we need the comfort, we need time. So everything that we can facilitate and accelerate, then we are trying to do that as Mastercard in order to save the time for our clients. Speaking on the contactless emission in Ukrainian market, in the first half a year, more than 5,300,000 contactless cards I do believe that maybe not that much. If we take a look at the portfolio of the active cards, we have 38 millions of the active cards, then it's not that much. You have just 5 millions of contactless, but the terms of growth are really good. We don't have the statistics on the third quarter, but I'm only be mentioning the first half a year. For the first half a year, 2019, the growth of the cash contactless portfolio was 36%. So we are there. The Ukrainians like the technologies, Ukrainians accept the technologies, Ukrainians use the technology. By the way, the active card portfolio growth was 3% only, so you can see the difference. The digital and simple physical card, we understand that there's a difference. And we know that as Ukrainians, we're choosing the digital technology now. By the way, you made us very good services. Thank you, Mastercard, for that, especially for the metro. Yes, we will talk about the metro and the KIEF underground, why we're doing that, and we'll also speak about that. Thank you once again, by the way. So we see how the behavior of our clients is changing also. We're also growing up, we're getting older. We understand it. We accept the cashless and contactless services. We really like it. And by the way, I've prepared this statistical data for around 3.5 years. So if you'll take a look at the longer period, there's going to be a crucial difference. But starting from 2016, we've already seen the behavioral change. If in 2016, in the number of transactions, there was 70% of contactless, but in the scale there was only 35. In 3.5 years, it's already changed. 85% of all transactions are the cashless transactions. In the scale, there's also 50% of all of the transactions. So this is very good for us, very good trends, and very good trends for the economy. Very good trends for the economy. Another trend that I wanted to mention is the growth of the online commerce. We're all getting used to that. We're getting used to the online shopping, and not only the online shopping. We have seen already the growth in a couple of years. And we have a growing almost 100% of volume. Starting with this year, in 2018, we will think that the tempo of growth will be preserved. There are a lot of different opportunities, and at Mastercard company, we're doing everything in our efforts so that the technology that we introduce would facilitate and simplify the experience of paying online and make it safer. Getting back from the emissions, from contactless technologies, from online commerce, in 2017, in Ukrainian market, we have had a new technology coming, the one that we say NFC. It's basically the smartphones, the smartwatches, all of the gadgets that we can use for payments. That is very now loved because this is definitely booming. This technology is booming. More than 20 banks are already offering these technologies to their clients. So different types of payments, Google Pay, Apple Pay, Carming Pay. There are the bank emittent solutions. But Ukraine, as a country, already for more than a year is holding the position among the top 5 countries all over the world on the number of NFC transactions in Mastercard cards. We're even got it even faster, the NFC technology, even faster than the contactless technology. So if you're paying with your phone or with your watch, then you cannot even recall the time when you have to get your physical card and recall your PIN codes. Maybe that's not that comfortable all over. According to the statistics of the National Bank, the number of the digital or tokenized card is around 1.4 million. I don't think it's a big number, but as a Mastercard company, we see that for the third quarter there is a strong decrease in the number of those cards. So we really like these technologies. We're using it all over the place. But this was on the positive side of it and on how we are doing it. This is about the digital transformation in our society. But there are some failed things that we have to work on together. And we have to get our efforts all together. The payment system, the banking structure, the state institutions, because there are still a lot of points, a lot of moments, a lot of the biggest part of the cash that Nadiia has mentioned also. What the research shows? That the research shows that the growth of the financial activity has grown by 10%. If they're going to be active by 10%, it will increase the GDP of the country by 0.3%. If we speak on Ukraine, that's about 9.3 billion hryvnias. So I do believe that we have to work on this, and the goal is very good. So 1/3 of Ukrainian population, and it's about the adult population of Ukraine, do not have a bank account yet. And this is why we need our generated efforts, our joint efforts, so that the cash flows have become visible for the economy of the country. Moreover, another segment that we have to pay our attention to, this is the small and medium businesses. We have conducted a research on the European countries, together with Ukraine, and we have considered on how the cashless payments are being used in this segment. And Ukraine does not give great indicators. 38% of small and medium businesses can provide the cashless payments. Just think about it: 62% of businesses are not covered by the digital payments or the cashless payments, whatever you call it. The average indicator throughout the European countries is 62%. So basically completely the opposite than in Ukraine. 62% of small and medium businesses can provide you the cashless payments. Currently, the small and medium businesses are 99% of all the amount of the enterprises in Ukraine. The small and medium businesses responsible for 68% of jobs in Ukraine. There is a huge potential. So the most important emphasis for us this year and next year is going to be this segment, small and medium businesses. Answering Nadia's question, what are we doing in order to change the world and to give this digital transformation to Ukrainian markets? And you also recalled it in the right way that 4 years ago we have conducted our first pilot project. We have tested out our technology, and we really wanted to take a look on how our cardholders are going to react and respond to that. In KIEF subway, in KIEF metropolitan transportation system, we've had the so-called yellow stations. You know that there's growing this number of those in the metropolitan stations, in the stations of a subway. Currently, the amount of the payments for these 4 years is around 88 million transactions. So every day, more than 20,000 trips are being paid in cashless way, in contactless way throughout those terminals. What has happened in this 4.5 years? We haven't stopped, and in the concept of smart city, we have launched more than 30% of payments. We are out of the underground. It's not only about the underground transportation, we're also collaborating with the public transport. We are getting outside of the Kiev. We have a couple of other cities from Ukraine in the list of those cashless cities. And also we stepped away from the transportation system. We're working with the other infrastructural objects for the resorts, and one of them is like Kiev Zoo, the Botanical Garden, the Sofievka Garden in Uman. Why are we working with those resorts also? Because we want to show you how technology works in practice. We can talk a lot. We can provide a lot of different educational programs and training programs. But as soon as the person will try out this for themselves, they will never break down this barrier. Together with our partnership banks, we have analyzed the situations of clients, the ones that have started to use the cashless payments for Kiev subway 4.5 years ago. They have become really more active in their trade networks. So it wasn't just about the transport. They started to pay for the services and goods with cashless technologies. And if the clients were active, so they used not only the transport but the other services, these clients become twice as active on the numbers of transactions in the other networks. Inga, I'm sorry, but if may I intervene? So the comments of the National Bank also had it, that the National Bank has said that we should create the demand, and the demand will create the need. So the digital transformation shows us the difference. We can give a lot of information on technology, but give your clients a try. If it's going to be easy, then I really love this. I really love this phrase, like who is the one who takes the complexity? So if before we have had these complex systems and provided them with the clients, so you need to go into queue, you have to visit some organization 3 times, you have to push the 3 different buttons and 3 buttons additionally. Now, if you do that in the easiest way, so I can get up to any POS terminal and pay even if I've forgotten my wallet in the car, then this is great. And all of this is experience, international experiences. So basically, you're stimulating the demand. Not the demand came to you and told you, Mastercard does this cashless payment, but you've stimulated it. And those very people who haven't used cashless technologies before, they currently understand understand that this is very convenient, so why should I turn to the old outdated system? Yes, and Nadezhda, I would even broaden that. I do not believe in the user experience notion, and you are quite right, you are. If there won't be the good convenient technologies, however we do that, however we marketing packaging we put it in, however the motivation is, I'm not going to use it. We all know our woman person, sometimes it's hard to find your wallet in there. But if you have just a watch on your hand and you do not have to think for a long time of how you can pay it, you can just make one move with that and you don't have to enter the PIN code, something that you do naturally as a person, and you can do that on your own. You can tell your friends and family about that. You can tell the social media about it. This is a viral technology, the technology that goes as virus. And continue the topic of smart cities. There are a number of other projects that we also do. And Ukraine is now famous for conducting different kind of musical and festivals all over. And Mastercard has become the partner of the 20 kinds of festival like that, also following the same aim, to give the practical demonstration of how less it is, creating the cashless territories when you can be without your wallet and you're not really caring whether this wallet is going to be stolen at this festival or whatever. You're relaxing, you're enjoying the music, enjoying the films, and at the same time you can pay for everything you want cashlessly. It is something that shows that technology is easy, the user experience is easy, and it's something that creates additional demand for this technology. And thus, a lot has been done in Ukrainian market. There is the positive trend, and we're really happy about that. And we would like to get into the top 5 countries from the cashless transactions. We're visible on the global map. That really makes us happy. But then again, we have to consolidate our efforts and keep on moving forward. We have to think we have a lot of cash still in the country. Thank you. Can you then pass this clicker to the next speaker? Pass the clicker to Alexander. Alexander. I have another question to you. So Inga has started on telling us on using the cashless centers, and if we're going to take a look at the startups, and the most of startups that you work with, I'm working with, they all have them interesting financial models, because we have a lot of startups from banks, but banks are closed down, and 50% out of those people started to deal different financial startups, a lot of them. And the question is that Ukraine has a lot of startups that are mostly oriented for the small and medium businesses in the payment systems, but they do not sell the product here. They sell it somewhere outside. The question to you: you're developing the innovative system, and there's a lot of cases when you would like to get those startups back home, and you can tell them whether you can work with those big companies, but you have to be just clear for them. Maybe you'll give us a couple of examples of those companies and your vision on that. Oh, thank you very much, Nadiia, for this introduction. And definitely the Ukrainian startups, they're not only very perspective, but they're becoming unicorns. They're becoming unicorns, and they're developing the Ukrainian ecosystem. They're giving the good example to the other people to follow the Ukrainian ecosystem, and they actually show that Ukrainian ecosystem exists on the map of the world. And fintech, even though it might be strange, it also gives us the understanding that the banks, even though it might be weird that the banks are one of the most active in introducing the new technologies. The Mastercard, as you have said, they are one of those providers who are the suppliers of basic technologies. And when there is a lot of startups around the basic technology, and the banks, as the main channel, the final mile, they collaborate with the customer journey. They then get this technology to make it very, very convenient. That's one of the moments. The second moment is that it's not only about the startups. If for us to get this topic on the digital transformation, we can take a look at it from the different points of view, and we all believe that here among this audience we're all sure that technologies are it's not the moment of first importance. The platform of open innovation collaborates with the technology first of all, and we have more than 5,000 startups from all over the world every year. We see those startups, and we know how those startups are the carriers of technologies, and whether it reaches or not reaches the corporate division. We have around like 10 different demands and orders from inquiries from the 10 big Ukrainian corporations, and I will tell you a little bit on examples on how the transformations has happened with the help of startups and how they are open, how they've been opened, what are the problems, how the startups get opened. There are different moments about it. First of all, there is the closeness of Ukrainian businesses to accept the outside technology. We're not ready to accept some of technology. Instead of developing something inside and doing it for a longest time, building new competences inside, searching for talents that do not really want to work full day at a specific vacancy. They need a challenge. The new generation need challenge. They're not going to come to you to work full day. They need to have a challenge so they can create their own story, so they can overcome this challenge. So there's a different model of the collaboration with the labor market. And further on, there is the basic skills that the education should provide. And all of it creates the conditions what to do if the company would like to transform, but they don't have the resources. There was a question like, how much money do we need for the digital transformation? Let us decide it. Okay, I will tell you about other resources that you have to keep in mind of, not only the financial resources. Before you understand what you want to do, what you want to transform, before you start the big transformation in place, the business might have 4 different goals. The first objective is that you want to start the innovation virus inside of the company. This is phase number 1. You have to have the readiness. The second stage, that around your businesses, you're ready to create the innovation brand. You're becoming attractive for your own teams. You're becoming attractive for your own teams, for your own partners, and your partners know that you're moving all together with the world. The third goal is that you want to find the resolution for the specific task. And objective number 4, that not all of the Ukrainian companies understand, and we know that we have these companies already, is that they want to go to the new markets. They want to expand to the more bigger markets, not just geographical markets, but the markets of future. We have talked about it yesterday, and we continue to talk about it now. And there is the dramatic change that happens, is actually there. It takes your company to the high quality new level. Resources, limited resources. First of all, this is time, the top management time, that are ready to pay some attention to that. We're calculating it in hours, and then we calculate it in money. So it's not the capital investment, and most of the people think that we need a lot of capital investment budget in order to start the digital transformation. It's first of all the time of the top management. Yes, the time of the top management. And if we speak about the international benchmark, the global benchmark, that 5% of your working hours, if the top management spends 5% of their working hours for innovation, they are in the trend of the global changes. The company has prospects for the future. If they spend less, then you do not go to that share. If more, when the top management are really fascinated by innovative things, transformations, there is another threat, and we call it the theater of innovation. This is like an official term that is currently used when business is playing too much. Well, it's so fun and cool, and that's okay. I remember this 5 years ago. We had some of the big companies that actually had this digital transformation, starting up, all the startups join us, and even the management did not come for event. Only PR people are sitting there, no engineers, no managers, just PR department sitting there. They needed the innovative brands, and they made it. That's it, and nothing has changed with the company itself.
Well, of course, this is the huge pain for us, in fact, a headache, because when we speak about the development of the Ukrainian ecosystem, we need to see them from different perspectives, from the life of business and from the venture funds and startups. So Ukraine is living through the stage of event hackathons. I don't want to offend anyone who organizes the events and hackathons. It is important. It is the virus which launches certain mechanisms, but still, we need to grow out of those children's pants and to go on to the more mature, grown-up models, where you are spending your time and converting your time into real outcomes, because a year will pass, you will like to get a bonus, and KPI will tell you there's no bonus for you. So the external resources help you to do that. You shouldn't do that with the internal ones. You shouldn't invent the coffee machine if you want to have coffee. So now the corporation, the Ukrainian corporation, invent the coffee machines again. Each department is inventing its own coffee machine, and then they invent new sorts of coffee to fill this coffee machine with. So now we are in the period of time, if we look at the top management, when we have a very precise formulation of request, and when you give this request to the world, you will get the response. Now we have the post-IT era, and whatever you want to invent has already been invented. Now the task is to integrate what you have into the most efficient model of management. That is time of people, that is technologies, resources of the company, the clients, the customers, and data sets. And the fourth are only money, the budgets to use all of that. So when we speak about the sum of the examples, when we go away from, well, I'd say, if we imagine that the resources are rather restricted and you want to find the model at the map, by the way, it is used not only for the bigger business, but also for medium, for any business which wants to change itself with the help of the external in open innovations, the concept of open innovations. Then you can change any tool depending on your level of readiness, beginning with the competitions, hackathons, the creation of innovation hubs, incubators, product developments, the cooperation about certain products, accelerators, and the highest level, when you want really to get to the new markets of the future, is the common enterprises with the technological companies, which is, by the way, already done with the by the banks. Santander, Citi, they create separate organizations which are the carriers, the bearers of those technologies, and which have something in the banking infrastructure, but they deal autonomously. They can take their own decisions. They are mobile. There are certain cases of that in Ukraine as well. I'd like to mention an example of Osyka Group company. Antonov has already told us a lot which changes are taking place here, and those changes are embedded in the basis, in the philosophy of the work with the ecosystems. Osyka Group, in fact, is changing its model. It's transforming it from the filling stations to the store not far from the road. So it was a nice phrase. If you live close to the river, you feed yourself by the river, and the same about the road. How do you use this competitive advantage with the help of the technologies? You don't need to create chatbots or robots. You don't have to invent them. You just need to apply them. You should go to the external world. What's the external world and ecosystem? This is a very important question. In Ukraine, the ecosystem begins again with the people who are the bearers, the carriers, and the resources which transform the company. Beginning with the school, the university, then the accelerator, and only then the startups. So we need to embed into this foundation not only the knowledge which are given during the education path, but the skills which help those who are coming from the school, from the university, and to use them for the new aims to achieve. And you don't know what are the new aims. In the Osyka Group, the top management is investing into that. They have their own private schools because the top management felt this problem at the level of the staff, of the personnel. You cannot just hire people. You need to invest into them if you want to survive in 5 to 7 years. Well, I do apologize that I interrupt you because we've got lots of questions and I'd like like to give the floor to Susanne. I'd like just to mention that very often the companies in Ukraine want to hire new people. To create the new businessmen, they hire new people. They don't want to retrain, requalify. This is a huge issue, because what Milovanov showed to us 2 days ago, he showed a very interesting comparison between the freed professions, how many people we are trying to find into the public sector, and the same number of people is trying to find the job in the public sector, but the level of competences is different. But it is possible to retrain people. But how? So if we comment upon this scheme, the model, if I am an SME, then I can use some free tools. I can become a partner with the startup, which, for instance, solves some of my issues. Yes, totally. Product co-development, you need just the minimal resource from the corporation and maximum from the bearer of the technology to achieve some new quality, and it is working. But if I'm a bigger business, then I create a separate innovation hub, and I look at the startups which I can choose and integrate into myself, or to create certain common ventures, right? Yes, to create certain satellites, certain businesses around you, which sometimes even help you to mimic or to transform from the older one to the new one with the help of the technologies. There are more detailed guidelines for that, which we explained at the platform of open innovations. We're showing that with each of the corporations. We have successful experience with the DTEK company, and we go on doing that, and we can see how the company is transforming just in front of us, and rather rapidly. And a short comment about the people who are fired or firing. The crisis, once we analyzed with my colleagues from the venture funds, during the crisis we have the coolest startups emerging, and then they become unicorns. And the venture funds, when the global crisis is on its way, are preparing their funds for those highly paid people who are fired, just to take them. Because those people are the drivers, the founders of the future, who know the business for many years. They know the insights that much that you should just give a certain push, a certain impulse to them to create a new product. So to have transformation budget for the HRs, yes, definitely. And also I'd like to mention what you said about your competitors, like Oko. I know that there is one more person here. We are working about culture in the cultural sphere. And we said that one of the transformation factor is the change of the competition. We looked at the competitors only in our branch, only energy, or only banking, or Oko like services on filling stations. But for now we have the discussion, why couldn't Oko become a tourist sector or cultural sector, just to recommend cultural objects which are around this fueling station, and again they can earn on what they recommended. They recommended a hotel, a place to eat at, and so on. So digital transformation foresees that if you are online, if you have the massive access to the external information, then you can work in any industry, not only in the industry where you've been born as a company. Well, cool. This is the co-creation. Yes, co-creation. Thank you. The co-creation when we change the barriers, when your partner is not a competitor, he is I would say, he irritates you to change you. Your supplier knows more about your problems than you do, and the most important thing to begin to listen to him and to create some new value added into this value chain, and those ideas begin when you begin the dialogue. And secondly, convergence. That is when we cannot say if this is the agro company or an energy company, when in the expense structure more than 60% is fuel. Or are you telecom or you are a bank already? If you provide services as a telecom operator and banking transactions as well. So the same happens with the fueling stations. Are those fueling stations or food retail? The convergence changes the landscape of the economy that much that then you just don't notice that you are not in one industry anymore. And this co-creation becomes the most active if we remember the words of Jack Ma, that to fantasize, to create, is the skill which needs to be number one, and we need to focus our attention upon that, because creative economy is the economy which creates the biggest GDP for the countries. Thank you. I'd like to give the floor to Susanne.
I'm just coming to you and you have a patient to listen. Thanks a lot for that. I just know your big experience in doing digital transformation in your company. And I'm really impressed that you have now under your coordination, yes, so that's more than 70 global affiliates, right? So, and this is right, 170 countries, something like that. And to my understanding, so you already on the top of the top finalization of digital transformation, or everything which was already possible to implement it is implemented in your company, like robotics, like data and everything. And you're responsible also for operation, for supply chain. That's the most challenging business processes in any companies. This is the core of value chain. And I know that you're one of the key success factors which we discussed with you as people. So could you comment a little bit your experience, probably some key success factors, and where is the operations in this digital transformation? People, operations, processes, something from that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. A pleasure to be here and interesting to listen on all the perspectives. So I would be a little more humble than to say that we're that far ahead. I would think that we have miles to go still to develop. So, but we're a company organically grown for 95 years. We've highly automated. We have enormous amount of data. When you're in pharma, I would say we almost produce as much data as we do product to demonstrate that we're in control and that products are good. So this thing of capturing data in our processes is not new. The fact is, though, that a while back at the initiation of the hype of Industry 4.0, I went out and started looking at how we were progressing. And the thing is, we were so comfortable with where we were at that most of my teams were doing what still makes sense, the continuous improvement. I gathered everyone and we had a session where we brought in people from outside, and questions were posed to my team. How were they working with different aspects, and they were quiet. So I came to realize, to your point as well, that my management team, possibly myself as well, and all layers of management were probably our biggest barrier to start the transformation, because we were too focused internally on the processes and improvements we could do based on what we knew. So the beginning of our digital transformation became one of going out and finding inspiration. I needed to push the teams out. We visited banks. We're a pharma company, so why would you go to a bank? Well, banking is interesting because of the digitalization of admin processes, which is a lot of what we do as well. We went to the car industry. We visited small startups. We were all over to try to figure out what is it we've become blind to. So to me, the whole notion is not really the difficulty of understanding the technology, it's finding a desire to change. What is your current practices? So
does it mean first to find talented people within the organization, or the first step is coming out and find some kind of partnership?
But I think hiring in people and forming partnership is great, but I think scaling really requires that you're a legacy organization, that all the people, the 14,000 people I have in the supply chain organization, that they are willing to change and that they see opportunities. Otherwise, our adoption rate of technology is way too slow. So a lot of the journey, we then actually started out making sure that our managers could lead the journey and were curious and intrigued to put themselves out there and realize what they did not know. So removing the shades of ignorance. Then we started making bets, investments into several tracks, analytics being one that took off in the supply chain quite fast. The interesting thing was very soon we became bottlenecks. And I'm also not a huge fan of trying to work everything in centers of excellences, because I think, again, scaling takes too long. So rather we decided, okay, let's try to, while we have centers of excellences or hubs of knowledge, to make sure we again invest into the legacy organization. So an example would be, rather than developing an app and giving it to the operator, I have operators in the factories that can develop their own apps. They need not that much training. We have educated data stewards across our supply chain that can visualize and present data at a certain level. When it becomes really complicated, they need to go back to the central team. But our idea is here that if we can fuel and have competencies grow broadly in the organization, our path to scale is going to be a faster one.
So, Susanne, to my understanding, first of all, you made the readiness from the employees, so readiness to change, right? So the first people start to be energy to change and understand that they need to change. And second step, so you focused on data, on collection data, and grabbing ideas from that data, right? So before you start working with data, you don't have a clear vision where and how you will work at the end. So you grab the data from all of that places and then try to scale some kind of findings, right?
Yes, if I stay within the supply chain planning functions, for instance, we spend a lot of time making analysis, and then we spend a lot of time discussing whether data was right. So you can say time to action was delayed, and I think you all know there is this often distrust in the data that you find. So what we then did was making data accessible, structuring data, building the data lakes, connecting the data entities that were completely separated, started visualizing early on in the journey simple dashboards, which is now 1,000 dashboards that are hosted locally. We went in to analyze data at a much more granular level than we were used to. We used to work, I would say, in a world of averages. Now we work our data at a much more granular level and start to see new truth. Understand better product profitability down to a SKU level in a single factory, whereas beforehand it would be product family kind of talking. So it's developing and taking off, and we're doing advanced analytics, machine learning now to prescribe some of the actions in the supply chain as well. But I wouldn't go there first. I think at first I needed to create this, connect our data platforms, starting to speak a different language where we generally trusted our data more, having more people being able to access, surface, and form the decisions needed. We also took our lean organization. They'd been used to, whenever they saw something, a waste, a problem, to analyze, to root cause and deploy solutions. So just by adding reason codes to the data that we saw, we had our lean organization starting, as they've done always, just acting on what they've seen. So my point would be not to separate your digital journey on the outskirts of your organization. I think if you want to totally disrupt your business model, maybe an isolated entity is good. I think you lose pace on the long to scale if you isolate your knowledge around digitalization into two small hubs. So it's my core belief that we need to develop from within. We need to make investments also for our lengthy employees. I mean, one of the most innovative guys I have on my team right now, he's 60 plus. He runs sprint workshops to try to completely rethink legacy processes. It's exciting. And why does he do that? Why am I not looking at a new hire? Because he's adopting a new way of thinking. So I would recommend, or it's my experience, and what we're trying to do is to have this transformation happening from within the legacy organization. And yeah, it takes time, it's complicated, we learn. I need to put myself back to school too. Yeah, I mean, 2 weeks ago I had to sit down in class, machine learning compared to what I learned when I was in engineering school. To just being able to push ahead my organization and ask different questions, right? So I think...
Yeah, I think that we have the same problem in majority of companies, Ukrainian companies, because we have a lot of, like we name, reporting in Excels, which is sometimes doubling, sometimes the incorrect information, a lot of reporting people, you know, and currently, for example, it was a nice case when the Minister of Dmytro, he's Minister of Cabinet of Ministers, very strange name, but still. So he announced that we are simplified the Ministry of Statistics, and it means that something like 1,500 people have to left that agency, because he said that we have all data online, so we don't need special people who will recalculate it, data which we already loading, something like that. So it was a big concern in the society, because so that people constantly collect that data. And the question about the quality of the data, urgency, real of the data, online of the data, and the clearly connection with all of that, that's a responsibility of people who have to take the decisions based on that data, because you talk about a lot of dashboards. It means that you have a quick information about the processes, but on your level, if you utilize lean organization, it means that decisions is coming down, yes, to the operational level. It means that each operational manager have to make a decision by his own and take the responsibility of that. And this is the problem of Ukrainian management and Ukrainian business, because Ukrainian business have a tradition to lift up all kind of projects and problems to the top management and then say, thanks, I have a weekend, I have already a day off, so sorry, and this is question of top manager. So how you deal with that? Is a lean organization mainly solution, or so it's because of data, and with data you can see who is making which decision and who is responsible for what?
Yeah, it's not all automated decision processes, but it at least starts with knowing or working off data that you trust. Then what's exciting is the fact that we can access unstructured data too. So we've documented a lot on paper too, but technologies also allow you to search for the data entities on paper, so we can start, you know, enriching the data environment. I think by investing into all levels of the organization, I am also countering the technology hype just for the sake of technology, as many more of the speakers were talking on, because it is unlikely that my department manager is going to go ahead on a project that does not support him meeting his target or his budgets. My factory manager is not going to be too happy if I tell him to run a project at the same time keeping him under a lot of pressure to meet aggressive development plans unless the two comes together. So I think rather than pushing solutions top-down, I'd much rather push knowledge top-down and have bottom-up pull of the right projects in the right places with the right technology.
Okay. Thank you, Susanne. I just would like to, я хочу для всіх просто
I want to read it out for all of it. I want to read out one of the professors from leadership on MIT, the university institution that is really highly respected. And one of the professors said, before accepting the Nobel Prize, that digital transformation requires strong leadership to support change, but it also presupposes you have the vision on what parts of the company you want to transform. The companies of all spheres and regions are experimenting for digital transformation and take benefit out of it. And this is why I wanted to say that digital transformation is not just one project with one opportunity. Jack Ma has been here at one session. He has said that the mistakes are those that something that is going to take your experience, empower your success. And digital transformation is based on experiments. You do not know how it will look like in the end. You're only trying. And right now I want to get to this Q&A session, and there's a lot of questions already, and there's a question to Dmytro. And please answer in a very brief way. So the first question, how many employees of the DTEK company are solely dealing with digital transformation? Well, we have the digital cluster, that's around 70 people. Those are our digital talents. And of course, that's just the part of our technical expertise. And the business itself is really strongly engaged into those projects. And we have like 30, 40 people who are working additionally to that. So we have around 100, 110 people who are currently dealing with the digital transformation. Okay.
Where did you get the idea for the digital transformations?
Well, very similar to Susanne's experience. We in the energy industry needed inspiration from other places. So we visited aviation, we visited banking, we went out there and had a look. So I think there was a combination of going out and looking at what was possible, but then also looking inwards and trying to understand what problems we had to solve, where we wanted the organisation.
From the client or also internal?
Internally, inside the organisation, our own organisation. And so it was getting that nice balance between outside inspiration and technology push, and the pull that comes from the organisation that has problems to solve and improvements that they want to drive, and getting that excitement and that understanding of improving your work is the work, and pushing that, like Susanne says, all the way down into the organisation, so that you can empower every person in your company or your business to deliver value at all levels. It's very important.
Okay, thank you. Inga, к тебе тут много вопросов.
Inga, there's a lot of hard questions to you, so just get ready to that, because you know they say that acquiring is 10 times more expensive than in Europe, and there's a question for the small and medium businesses that's very expensive. And by the way, I have just a neighbor, one of my neighbors, they have also said like, how much it will cost it, like that's it, and how if you pay with card, they say like plus 2%. So this is how it's done in small businesses. So the question to you, like, do you believe that the low level of the cashless payments is that the price of acquiring for the small enterprises is 10 times more than in Europe? Well, you know, by the way, in Europe it's not that as cheap as we believe it to be. We just know that there is the regulation of the actor change, and everyone is discussing this topic, 0.2, 0.3%, depending on the products. But there is also the questions on the acquiring price, because it's not only the interchanging services, but also the innovation that a company introduces, and it also costs some money. That is why we have this bright picture that it's all cheap, but no, it's not always like that. It's not always true. The situation is much more complex than that. Speaking about this plus 2%, well, according to different evaluations, in the so-called grey zone, we have around like 30 or 50% of economy of Ukraine is in the grey zone. And what I believe that it's not around like not only 2% from this merchant fee is the reason why this huge part of Ukrainian economy is in the grey zone. So everything is much more complex. The situation itself is much more complex. So everything that is concerning merchant fee and the interchange, you have already had a lot of initiatives coming up in the market, a lot of initiatives that have been voiced out, and the National Bank has also underlined that as one of their strategies, that in 2 years there might be additional regulation. So I do believe that might be one of the questions, but it's not of that global scale. And there's much more different macroeconomical reasons that are responsible for the situation we have in Ukraine. Okay, just a recommendation from my colleagues or potential clients, like, can you at least try from Mastercard to make a special campaign for Ukraine, for at least that the platinum clients of Masterbank would not have the commissions while you would like to take the cash from the ATM, or throughout the transfer of the money inside of the banking system, there wouldn't be that expensive commission, so that you can use your account. So maybe that's just a comment. Yes, that's an interesting question, but you have to understand that the tariff policy is being made not by the National Bank, but the tariff policy is mostly about the emitted bank and about the acquirer and the service supply who provides this service. We do not have this direct influence for the tariff policy for our partners, but maybe you have the banking commission, maybe you can do something about it. It's not all about us in this case. Alexander, there's a question to you. Wow, I've lost the question. Excuse me, just a second. No questions? That's it. No questions, everything is clear from my side. Okay, I will just get back to Dmytro then, and I will get back to Alexander in a minute. Dmytro, the question is about mostly security question. So please tell us, from my side, we are now in the digital transformation, and the part of your business is about the critical infrastructure, the energy. And it is interconnected with cybersecurity issues, because once again there is a big question on Skynet. There's a lot of questions whether we have cybersecurity in place, if we're going to be very open, if the startups are going to be way too open for the international markets. So what do you believe about it as an IT specialist, and you've been working in technology for quite a long time, so how do you solve this cybersecurity issue? like, okay, so not going to become dangerous because we also have the different cyber systems. So we have these rules in our digital transformation that presuppose working with cyber security and all of the solutions that we currently develop. We have the architecture sessions. We understand where they have to be, what stitches in port, what are the informational security policies. We have it in our company, so we're following it all. So every architecture that's been developed for the company inside of the company is compliant to these requirements. And of course, we test out our solutions. So this openness as it is, it won't be there on a global scale. So what are we doing? We sometimes exchange the data with our technological part of the grid and network, and we receive the needed data out of that. But there are the specific solutions that we're using to do that. Just to give it a brief, and I will give you more details if someone would like to know that. Thank you. Alexander, there's still the question to you. So how to get the public university to the framework that you have outlined with all of the requirements for the public procurement in the financial non-autonomies? Who had this question? Can you raise your hand? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to call names. Okay, you know, this is your that's the bullseye basically. So all of the state-owned companies, we have this experience of working with different transformation. Your transformation is possible on different level. And level of the corporation is one of that. We're working even with the cities, with municipalities, with smart cities being really effectively introduced and working with the environment, and master cities helping us a lot with that. The third point that we're working with is the state-owned companies at the state level, and here we are meeting the Prozoro system, where unfortunately it's not that easy to buy innovations through Prozoro, because currently in the law, in the legislation, we have this definition as the competitive dialogue that can be initiated before the tender is held. So pay your attention to this point, to this definition, and we can then discuss it later privately. Yes, I will give you the consultation of how you can do that, because not all the people mentioned this point, but that is a question that has been asked for us a lot of times. Why can't we work with Ukr even though we really want to? Why we can't work in a normal way with Ukrzaliznytsia, even though it has the biggest potential on transformation, on introducing innovations they have? Just because there are some moments with procurement. Unfortunately, we don't have someone who would have more competence to say that the representatives of state bodies. But because of our experience and what we had in our experience and what we say at all of the meetings with the state bodies, we're not fighting the state bodies and organizations, but we're trying to be really persistent in providing our recommendations. Okay, now we have a really one-phrase question, or just like 2 or 3 points. What are the advice for the beginning companies for the digital transformation? Just 1, 2, 3. What are the recommendations?
For each of you, for the end of the discussion, is that could you give us like 2, 3 life hacks, or probably one, but very strong, for the companies who just starting digital transformation, how to be successful. Within your thinking, я пока хочу просто...
And while you're thinking, I would like to answer the question that I had. That was mostly the question to Mr. Fedorov, but I will try to comment upon that. But I once again, you not to ask to quote me, but there was a question on the state in the smartphone and what are the money to do that, who pays the money for that. There is a clear position of Mr. Fedorov that we are not spending the state money for that. We have 30.8 million of hryvnias to support the current system. The site that used to work before, I believe, this is one again my opinion about that. Some of the grants are provided by the Ministry to the Ministry of Digital Transformation to implement this strategy. Another point, there are some of the systems that are going to be, that used to be very open, that are becoming very close, they're becoming very open. There are 2 projects that the state has created to support what Alexander has said on the state sector openness, the one that cannot yet get the digital transformation because of the 2 restrictions. The first restriction is, I'm not going to comment upon that, but let's say very outdated and very ineffective system of the complex protection information system that was created in 70s and 80s. And the second big problem for the state enterprises is they have no opportunity to use the cloud services, and all of the startups, all of the information companies, they're working in the cloud services. And those are the two problems that the Ministry of Digital Transformation are trying to solve till the end of the year. As soon as they will have this opportunity, then we'll have the opportunity to use international companies and not to buy loads of hardware. And this is the opportunity to have additional money to start innovations, to engage the companies that already have, even if some, but already have some parts that you can very fastly integrate to your company to make it more innovative. Now, back to you and your advice or life hacks, but really, really briefly. Well, first of all, I wanted to start to talk about that the most important factor is the desire and the engagement of the top management. I believe before you turn to the digital transformation, you have to have the top management support. Then manage your expectations. This is a long way, so it's not going to happen overnight. So explain to your management, explain to all your stakeholders. So communicating. Yes, that's a long-term game. The third point would be search for talents. Search for digital talents on the market. There's a lot of people. They're strange, but you can engage them. Yes, okay, thank you.
Some life hacks from your side, short.
I'd just like to reiterate some of the things that were just mentioned. They were good. One of the things for me is don't focus on the technology. Focus on the value. Focus on what are you trying to achieve and why. Technology in almost all cases is going to be commoditized and will not be a competitive advantage. Your ability to diagnose your problems, understand where the value lies in driving the improvement, and then integrating and executing the work will be the competitive advantage, not the technology. So work on your capability to identify problems and identify gaps to value, and then how do you close them through the application of technology, changes in ways of working, be them digital or otherwise.
Transform problem into the values. Thank you. Inga.
I have two advice, I guess. So first of all, start with yourself, because basically transformation is most about you and then about mind frame and then about the processes and procedures and the top management, when they're ready for the transformation, you will be ready for that if you have the mind change. And as for the person who works in the company and the company overall, and the second moment what I've started to talk to, no technology for technology's sake. You have to understand that at each technology, every transformation, you have to understand clearly what are you doing that for. And around it all, there has to be your customer in the center. So the customer oriented to simplify and facilitate their experience and their journey, then there will be the future for the change. Thank you. You know, I will be mostly repeating what I've started with. First of all, you have to identify the objectives. You have to identify the goals. What are you doing it for? Depending on the objectives, then it will define whether you'll be successful or no. And the resources will come to you then later on. Remember the objectives. The second point, that you have to be ready for the resistance. Like, even though we have worked with really great companies, there's definitely going to be the resistance in place. And the people would like to preserve the status quo, and they have to be ready for that. You need to know how to break the walls, but to do that in soft way, just, melting those walls and not breaking them. Something that we've discussed with Nadiia, the co-creation, co-engage, engage your personnel, engage your employees. They have much more knowledge about your processes than the top management. The person who works at the petrol stations knows better what the client needs than the market department specialists.
Good advices. I would say we talk about this in a sense of urgency and fear of missing out. I would like to promote a sense of opportunity instead. So approach this with the opportunities you see relevant to your businesses. Realize that this is as much a people matter as it is a technology matter. So the investment made into the organization, I think, is your best investment for scale. And then I would adhere to all the other good advice that's been said here.
Okay, thank you, Susanne. Last comment?
I've also recalled a couple of more. So move gradually. So do not plan this in long scale. Just move gradually, I'll say, yes. So the first minimal investment that will give you some result. Then you move farther and farther and farther on. And another point from our experience, from our, let us say, bureaucratic DTEK experience, simplify the processes. Your transformation should go faster than your company works. Facilitate the process.
Yeah, just to pick up on that a little bit, one way that might help for some of you struggling to start your transformations is maybe make it self-funding to start with. So before you say, I'm going to commit $1 million or $100 million to the program, think about a solution or a bit of waste that you can take out of the system. Find something that maybe reduces the need to drive somewhere and saves you $10,000, and then use that to start investing in the technology and the transformation. And so initially make it self-funding and then allow it to scale up. That'll help demonstrate value to your stakeholders and in many companies, the shareholders who want to see dollars and cents at the end of the day. And it will help you stay focused on where you've identified that you have value gaps.
Super. Finally, we had something about gamification. Я хочу просто зазначити дійсно, щоб робити digital transformation.
Yes, I want to outline it also once again, to just wrapping up. So when you're doing the digital transformation, what we need is sustainable leadership, but it's not about fighting as it used to be before, but you have to be engaging through gamifications, through listening to your employees, to listen to your clients, and when the client says, I don't need this, I need this, and then step by step with small pieces, you can do that. Take a look at the smaller processes. What can you improve in the smaller pieces, and that everything will be fine. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for staying with us. Have a nice following sessions. Thank you. We had a question from the audience. You would like to have it? Oh, you want to have a question? Okay, let us have one question. Good day. My name is Dmytro from MHP Digital, and our task is to create the digital model of MHP and to add it up with the digital model to the normal model. And my understanding, the sense of the digital transformation is about changing the paradigm of your communication with your final consumer. I have a question to Dmytro. You already know the portrait of your final customer in a very good way already. And are there any personified offers that you can offer to your clients, and what kind of offers that can be if you presuppose that you will have no limitation on data usage with your final customers? Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. But speaking on the clients and data, it's this next stage in our year, in our work. We wanted to create a separate module for our clients. Why? Because the market is changing and transforming, and the clients are changing. Okay, the energy is now being sold in a free way on the free market. But speaking on our customers, there were the first steps that we have currently dedicated to understanding the needs of the client. The needs of the client with having the data they give to us, the energy supply, the energy usage. They see their own personal cabinet with a clear interface and clear data. We have also started to consider what do we have about the data, and we have understood that sometimes we lack the data, and those are the first steps that we are doing in this connection between the data and clients. What will we do further on? Well, the time will show. That will be the next year's discussion. Yes, okay, we're not leaving. You can all have these questions, but once again, I would like for us to free the panel. Thank you very much for being very patient to all of us.
Panel. Thanks a lot.